sure you're not cold.
Hola, mi familia, mi amigas.
Hey, fam, it's good to see you all. Welcome to H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
And I am Dee.
We're so glad that you are with us here today, hanging out with us. We see people already in the chat, ready to run. As always, it has been an amazing week. We are home. I guess I should put my eyes on. We are home. It's we are back at our house.
I was about to say, baby,
I
come on,
know.
let it go. Let's transition.
We are back at our house. It has been a challenging week because when we got back here, it was
Snow
40
and
degrees.
cold.
Yeah, we just spent 5 beautiful weeks in 70, 68 to 90 plus degree weather.
Yes.
So, the Florida boy and me I just miss the heat, man.
The
I miss the sun.
sunshine. I miss the
But-
sunshine.
But we've making adjustments. We've already recognized how much we are making shifts in our existence from this trip.
Not just shifts. Hey, Marissa Price, I especially want to shout out my sister because this trip has, whenever you are in the Move Abroad process, your trips should inspire you, should motivate you. Listen, this trip, I know the places I am sure that I'm going to go to. So, shoring up our business strategy, our money strategy, and letting go of the things in this house and getting this house on the market. Y'all, if you have been following us for a while, you have known I have struggled with several different areas. This trip was the motivation I needed. This conversation today, I hope, is a part of what motivates you to say, I'm ready. But not just that, not just that. Let's take a moment of silence for the 92% of Black women who are brunching today because we did the work and politically things are different. I chose not to march today, to not even give credibility to the stance that I am in opposition of what's happening. Look, I care about what happens with me and mine. We voted, we took action, and now we are continuing to take action, not because of, I almost want to say in spite of what's happening. It did not impact the election, who was running, and the election results have no bearing on our Move Abroad plan. But I can tell you, I am for sure motivated, and I hope you are too. So this channel is about H and I. We're over 50. We're not retired. It is our goal to share research, the community that we're meeting as a part of that process, and what we are discovering on our scouting trips. This live format is not just for us to share, but we also want to hear back. This is a very active community chat so that you're welcome to ask questions in the chat. Someone in our community might answer it. We might answer it. Our guests may answer it. So the live format is intentional so that you are a part of
our community, because
and
this
our
is
conversation.
a conversation.
Yes.
It is a conversation because it's just not D and I yakking and listening and y'all hearing us in the background and talking to somebody. You have thoughts that have helped us grow in this process.
Absolutely.
And as always, we express our appreciation about that, because without that community, there's so many things we wouldn't have learned in this process.
And I would not have been as far along in our process.
So take the minute, because it takes a hot second to hit the like button. That's all it is. Like it because our guest is here. Like it for her benefit. Don't like it for us. Like it for her. And then subscribe to our channel, because we appreciate having you as a part of this community that we are.
And know that other people could be helped.
Absolutely. And hit the notification bell. We go live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. We also go live a few Mondays out of the month for Man Monday and a few Thursdays out of the month
Yep.
for women's health spotlights.
Yeah.
We are intentionally engaging the aspects of our history and our experience into this channel. So our
Yes.
behavioral health experience, our wellness experience, our culinary experience, we bring all that to the table as a part of this journey because we want you to see what it is when people are trying to get where they're going.
Yep.
If you are a couple, if you are a single, if you are a person of color, this is your channel.
Yep.
Be a part of this community.
Yep. Let's see. So it was my privilege. It is my privilege to be a part of the Exodus Summit community. That's where I met Temple and Tanya Brooks and Marissa Price and Lori Butler and a lot of the sisters that are in Bayesian Alpha 4, a lot of the sisters that are in the chat today, I met them. But this year I had the opportunity to be a speaker. But lo and behold, when you are a speaker, you're going to sit back and applaud your sister speakers as well. And so Dr. Maya Williams is joining us today. She and another person who I've had on this channel who I've learned a lot from, she and Rashidat, were both speakers during Exodus Summit, where y'all can see the replays of the topics that we discussed. But it was Dr. Maya's conversation about how to avoid move abroad fails that brought me to her. And then her channel has blessed us more abundantly. Okay. She is spilling the tea. She's not just sharing the tea. She's not just drinking the tea. She is spilling it so that you can benefit from 45 countries of her experience, her social work degree, her Spanish degree. She is not just educating, not just sharing experience, but she reads the comments and replies just like we do. And guess what you can do? You can say, look, I'm interested in so and so and so. I'm interested in Argentina. Can you do a video on that? And bam, you've got someone who's listening. So I thought I'd hype you up a little bit. Dr. Maya, y'all hear my voice is still on the struggle bus, but we don't get into the details today. Dr. Maya, why don't you add to whatever you want to or share with our audience? We have already linked Fly Like Me PhD in the description. Can you share more about your channel and how folks can reach out and work with you?
That Trinity flag in the background.
Okay. Yes, it's Trinity. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Hola familia. Soy Doctora Maya. I won't go into like a whole Spanish situation here, but really, really great to see you all. And Dee, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Like you just knew everything about me that is all true. So yes, I have a social work degree. My channel is Fly Like Me PhD. And on my channel, I focus on encouraging Black women to live or to move abroad. And so as Dee has mentioned, I read my comments for real, y'all. So if y'all want somebody that's responding to comments, that's me. And when there is a video or something intriguing that people want to talk about, I definitely am interested in following through with that. So as already mentioned, I have traveled to 45 countries and I have lived in 6 countries. I have also country scouted in 4 countries. So very excited to have this conversation with you all. I think it's going to be really fruitful and we'll have a lot that we can benefit from each other, learn from each other, and things that we can add about like the particular places that you scouted that I didn't and where I scouted that you all didn't.
Yeah.
Having these conversations, I think it's important to say that the perspectives that we bring to the table, especially as people of color, have affected some of how we've approached this move abroad. This morning, I made a brief stop at the grocery store and picked up a few things. And I commented to the cashier, who I've been in her line before, older white lady, been in her line before. And I said, man, I was just in Central and South America, and these same groceries that have just cost me in some tens cost me $15. And she said, well, hopefully things will be better after Monday. And I gave her that look. And I gave her that look, that exact look. And she said, what, you don't think things will be better? And then I did the same thing you just did. I just shook my head with my eyes closed. And it was a young black kid who was bagging my groceries. And he just put his head down like, and I just walked out. And I was just like, the perspective that things will change because
someone is in office.
Because someone is in office, whether they be a person of color, a white person, whatever. And a part of this scouting trip that Dee and I took was about taking control over what our future is, regardless of what's happening wherever we are. And it is, I don't want to wait for people to decide for me whether or not things are good or bad. And so when we took this scouting trip, it was, let's get in like we live these places. And when she introduced me to your channel, she said, look, this young lady she's all over the place. She's doing that thing. So I'm really geeked to hear, because as Black men in particular, there's always a bit of a challenge. We have the show me, I need to be in place. Black women are visibly traveling more than Black men. That is, I don't think necessarily that they are, but they're visibly traveling more than Black men are. And I went to see it. Now it has an effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
You can't show me pictures. I grew up with National Geographic, so you can't show me pictures as that's a reason for me to move to a place. These scouting trips allowed me to really engage the energy, the space and the time to see how it affected me as a person individually.
Because you have been to every country in North and Central.
Yes, you got a great memory. Memory.
Every country in North and Central America. Like when you stand back and you say, we're saying don't move abroad until you do a thing. What are some things that have bubbled up that have become more evident as you have multiplied your exposure to these different countries?
Yeah, great question. Really quick, I just want to say hey to Jay and hey to Dr. Keisha. I see you all are out there. Thanks so much for being here. So one of the things is that I am a person that kind of gets like narrowly focused on something. So I was like, Mexico City, everybody's been talking about it, and that's the thing I think we can discuss is like one person's gym may not be your gym, or may not be the country that you want, even though that's the one that people are hyping up. And so I'm like, Mexico City, we got it done. And then went there and found out there were some pieces that were actually missing from that experience that I was like, okay, wow, I didn't expect that I had to pivot. So then I went and did more research. I actually talked to Stephanie Perry, who is also the co-founder of Exodus Summit, about like what country specifically should I country scout in. And that's how I ended up going to Curacao in the Caribbean, going to Colombia, where I had already lived there for a year, and going to Belize to check those out, to live in those. And so back to your question of like things that you notice, I would say paying attention to every single country can inform you when you're going to country scout in the next one. Mm-hmm. So specifically in Mexico City, I noticed that it seemed like they weren't really down for people not necessarily knowing the language. It was like there was an expectation that you come here, you should know Spanish. People were speaking to us in Spanish. I took someone with me that Spanish is not like a strong language skill for them. But then we went to Colombia and they were so down to like help you with Spanish. They're like counting out the money. They're like, look, this is 10. This is 5. These are the numbers. Like a person that's selling something to you is like talking about denominations. And so I noticed like, okay, that wasn't the vibe in Mexico City. But then when I got to Colombia, I instantly noticed how friendly they were and how much they were like helping you to learn language. So one of the main things is like, if you pay attention to what's missing in one country, when you go and country scout for the next one, you can see if that is a thing that's there.
Yeah.
so it can like really inform you when you're going from one country to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, ooh. All right. So did you bounce, land? Or what was the approach that you took? Because that people ask us, where are you going? We've already said we're moving abroad. I think that is a great strategy because if you're going to leave, you still going to need to tie up your life. Don't just wait to find a place and then get your life together. Start getting rid of stuff now. Start lining up your life. So what was the approach that you took for um, either did you prioritize travel or did you say, I want to live in this place? And then once I live here, then I want to do a little bit more to understand if this next place could be better for me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. So for me, it wasn't like bounce, 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 decide. I thought it was Mexico City. So I had planned that trip and had no other plans after that. And so then the following year, I did bounce, bounce, bounce. So I went from 1 month I was in Belize, the next month I was in Colombia, and then the next month I was in, actually, sorry, I went to Belize and Curacao back to back. And then the
Okay.
following month I went to Colombia. So I kind of like bounce, bounce, bounce after I realized I was like, all right, let me just knock these out. In my PhD program, my moniker was get it done. Like I don't play
Yes.
these games. I'm like, let's go. Now that we know we
A
got to
done dissertation is the best dissertation. Girl, I look, yeah, did that. Yeah.
yeah. So I did the bounce, bounce, bounce and decided on that. For me, what I would recommend is like when you're country scouting to at least do a minimum of 2 weeks. I would love to hear from you all about what you would recommend too. But one of the weeks I take in just looking at neighborhoods. So it was so exhausting in Mexico City. Like this is a good problem to have is they have so many neighborhoods,
Colonias, yes.
but they're like the neighborhoods over here, over here, over here, up here, up here. Like it took so long to get to the neighborhoods. I went to 10 of them and in a week. Like that was all I was able to do. There was no travel piece. And so when I came back and people are like, what did you do? What did you see in Mexico? I'm like, girl, I saw them neighborhoods and that was it. And so then when I went to like Colombia, I did 2 weeks. I spent 1 week just looking at neighborhoods. And then I spent the next week actually traveling and seeing what the experience in the country was like.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason I agree with that is because of the misinformation we have gotten about what Central and South America have, what those cities are. We're expecting that we're rolling up into little towns, and we don't realize that we're rolling up into metropolitan areas. Mexico City is New York. It's boroughs. You're not going to go to Mexico. You're not going to go to New York and see all of New York in a week.
Yeah.
And so you have to approach that you are going to major metropolitan areas. What does it take to, if you are moving to LA, would you go to LA for a week to decide if you're going to live in LA? The answer to that is no. If you were moving to Miami, to Chicago, you would not in a week decide you were going to live there. 2 weeks is bare minimum, and you barely are going to do that because there's a part of you, no matter what your intent is, that's still touristy. You're
So
still trying to see what you can see and what you can grab. Because if I don't come here again, your brain works like that. If I don't come here again, what did I see? And so there's a lot of little things that you get caught up in that can be distracting to the everyday recognizing living process.
one approach, because that what I have learned is I have the heart for moving abroad. I have spent the time developing the list. I'm not going somewhere and I haven't talked to people that are on the ground or who have just gone there or who are on their way there. Like the local aspect from an expat point of view is valuable to me because they're looking for the same things that I would. I found a chiropractor because I went in the group. I was like, I need to see a chiropractor while I'm here, but I know I'm going to intentionally engage the healthcare. So I go with the list. So I'm asking you, do you go with the list? Second thing is, so you're scouting. Somebody suggested different, you stay in one neighborhood 1 week, then you get another Airbnb the next week, so that it's more than just, I want to view the neighborhoods. I've done enough research to figure it out. Staying there gives you the daytime, the nighttime, the party time. So okay, so I'm asking you about, you're in country, what's your approach?
Yeah. Okay, so the two questions. For the first one, I would say what I typically do is I just choose one neighborhood I stay in, and then I go to the other neighborhood and we'll spend like a day walking around and taking a look at it. But I think I remember maybe from one of you all's videos talking about it's really great to check it out at night, check it out during the day. You can like get a different vibe for what that place is like. So that's like a really great recommendation. I did not necessarily do that, but moving forward, I think that's wonderful. Like a place can look so different during the day than it can at night. And so you definitely have to try that out. Because one place I stayed in particular, quiet during the day, party at the night. I was like, wow, I was not expecting, where did all of these people come from to like have this whole situation? So it's really great to do that. And then in terms of like having a list, I actually do have a list. I had shared it with Exodus Summit, but I'll share it with you all today. I had 10 things that you should look out for when you're country scouting. And so I'll just mention a few of them now. One of them is going to be water quality. So as we know, just like a global issue is water, and we don't have time to solve that issue. So we just like need to be prepared in terms of like what works for us and what doesn't with water. Going back to Exodus Summit, Rashida Dow, the other co-founder in Exodus Summit, talks about water in Mexico City, right? Like they're having some issues related to water. So you need to know if the place that you're trying to go has issues with water. Like it just could be a thing. For me, I've lived in the Dominican Republic, and at one point we had to walk to get additional water, right? It took like not that long, maybe like 20 minutes, because in our area, we had no water. And so it was just a thing that can be known. It's like sometimes we won't have water, and are you okay with not having water at some time? So definitely knowing that about a place. Another thing is air quality. Like if you have issues, if you have asthma, like maybe a place like China that has like a lot of smog is not the right place for you. Also thinking about places that have a lot of altitude. So like if you have issues breathing and you're just trying to walk around living your life and the altitude is getting to you, that could be like a hard thing to deal with. One of the major things that you and I have been talking about now is that housing piece. This is a major piece. Like I think your experience substantially changes based on what your housing is.
Agreed.
So when I lived in Colombia for a year, I was in one neighborhood, y'all. It was like a labyrinth. I got lost every time I went there. Every time I took a taxi there, like, how do we get here? I'm like, I don't know. I know I live by the Red Cross, so let's just like go to the Red Cross and just trying to figure it out, because it was like in a hidden, area. And so that always stressed me out. Every time I had to go home, I'm like, I don't know how to get there. They don't know how to take me there. Let's figure this out. Then I moved to another place. It was so simple. I would tell people where it was. They're like, I know that building. It's the white building next to that shop. I'm like, yes. They're like, it's next to the bodega. I'm like, yes. Like they just knew. So it was just such a relief for me to like be a neighborhood where I felt comfortable. I felt safe. I knew how to get there. So making sure that you know about that housing is going to be really important to deciding what your experience is like. And then another thing is transportation.
Yes, girl. Come on, preach it. Preach it.
This is a huge, huge deal. Like number one is housing. Number two is transportation. Is it a place that is walkable, that has great transportation? Like you got metros, you got buses, you got taxis, or is it a place, taxis, or is it a place similar to like Curacao, where the transportation is not that great? In Curacao, which is in the Caribbean, and I have a video on this if y'all are interested, it's like you have to drive to get from one place to the island to the next, right? The beaches are over here, the grocery stores are all the way over here, and they don't have a lot of transportation to take you there. So if you could go there thinking that you could just walk places, you will be sadly mistaken. So you need to know that ahead of time. And in those places, they have their particular apps that can be used, right? Like there's one in Curacao called 24/7 Taxi. There's one in Colombia called In Driver. They also
Didi was our bae. Didi was our bae.
Didi, right? Like, so instead of just using Lyft and Uber, they got their specific ones that could be even better, that could be like more economical. So definitely knowing that when you're in a place. And the
Or
last
that they don't have it, or that doesn't exist. Rideshare is illegal in that country. I was like, there are places yeah. So it's a game changer.
Yeah, because there are places that we have visited. I'll use Mexico City and San Jose, Costa Rica as example. The traffic were bigger issues for me than the city itself.
And the cost
and the cost
differences
of travel,
between
it's
transportation options.
Being able to freely say this will take me this amount of time. If I'm still taking an hour to get across town, I could stay in the big cities I live in the States. There are reasons I don't live in some big cities now, because I'm just like, I don't want to be traveling a third of my day trying to go 30 minutes away, 15 minutes away, and that is, at this point in my life, that's a big deal for me.
It represents a stressor and a
how far
financial.
do I have to go to get to the nearest bus station? How much does it cost for rideshare to come to wherever I am? Because I may not decide to be in the middle of the city. And is it more expensive if I'm in the middle of the city? Those things are factors.
Or infrequent. We wanted to go to Envigado. And I talked to a local person that was just like, well, if you go, you need to go early and come back before 3 p.m. because that is considered like the suburbs, and most people have cars there. And so they don't frequent that area after a certain time, and the traffic back to Lorales. So I was just like, this is why the investment in talking to locals or listening to people like Dr. Maya that have been there, I didn't know I needed a quarter to go to the bathroom in Panama, but that's a whole nother thing. Come on, keep going down your list.
Okay, no worries. I'm glad, H, that you mentioned, or how you both were talking about like rideshare being illegal, because in Chile it was illegal to do rideshare, and so they were like, make sure that you sit next to your driver if you're going to still do a ride share, like on the sneak low. Don't sit in the back because you can get pulled over if they think that is a ride share. So it definitely is a thing. Some places it is illegal to do a ride share, even though they still had the app. But anyway, it's just like
Uber in Cartagena.
Yeah.
That's good. And then the last thing I was going to mention about country scouting is going to be food options. So food options, this is for everyone. This is not just like, oh, I'm vegan, oh, I'm vegetarian. Even though that matters, it's going to be for everybody. Because if you want good food, girl, why are we in a place that doesn't have good food, right? Like just in general, if food is delicious and it matters to you, then it's going to be mattering what the food has there. So like checking out the restaurants, going to places, seeing like what the staple is. Like there are staples in different countries. Like some countries are known for plantains, some are known for rice and beans, some are known for like this type of meat. Like you got to know that going in. So I went and I lived in Spain when I was a vegetarian. Big mistake, because they were like, girl, we got pork and everything. Why would you come to Spain and be a vegetarian? I'm like, yo, that's where they sent me for my study abroad. Not my problem. Do y'all have a salad?
Yeah. Steve has mentioned something here. Tell me how important this has been in your research. He's talking about a city's disaster preparedness plan, because we're finally coming to grips with the fact that earthquakes are everywhere. Hurricanes are hitting places they didn't hit before. Or tornadoes or fires. So how much do you consider that in your scouting process?
Yeah, great question. So definitely, thank you, Stephen, for your question. Is making sure that you talk to people that are already in the country is super helpful, because they'll let you know what are the issues in the particular place. So like I told you, Mexico has the issue related to water recently. For us in Colombia, why am I saying us? I am not there now, but I did live there for a year. So sometimes I forget. Okay. In Colombia, they turn off electricity at specific times during the day. They're like, we need to conserve it. Y'all using too much electricity. We don't have time to play these games with you. So sometimes they turn off the water too. So knowing that ahead of time is really helpful, that is a culture of the space at times. And then for places like you mentioned that have like hurricanes or like a rainy season, some places it rains a lot, you need to know this ahead of time. So actually, when I was abroad, I learned that one of the specific countries, they have like this box that had a circle in the middle of it and a bunch of arrows that pointed to the circle. And that was for disaster preparedness, where they were saying, if something happens in this area, this is where you need to stand, because whatever situation it is, whatever disaster it will not harm you in this specific spot. So like knowing those things when you're going to the country, knowing what they mean, talking to the locals, because they're going to know the type of disasters, and asking them how they prepare, I think is really helpful. For me, I probably wouldn't want to live in a country that has a lot of disasters that I have to be prepared for. Like, that's just a lot. That's not my bag. You know, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. We ain't really got disasters like that, just got a bunch of snow. And so, like, I don't think I would be ready for something like that. But if you do or want to do something like that, just getting the information before you go. So like knowing about that spot where you would stand if there was a disaster, or knowing what people do when there's a disaster, how they get prepared for it, and having that information for yourself in advance.
Yeah, we were able to use two of those things in the part of the trip when we went to Cuenca, Ecuador, because they were coming into a rainy period following a drought. So when we came in that week, it was raining a lot, and the rivers were roaring, where they said just a few days before it had been, to the rocks at the bottom, to the rock bed. And so we were prepared for that, but they had also been rationing electricity because of the lack of water for the hydroelectric power to the system. So we came in at a good time because they were just getting back into the flow of our water is flowing. But we also had done the research to find out that Ecuador's water was drinkable from the tap. So, when we got to Medellin, they said Medellin had some of the best, had their system, their water filtration system was one of the best in the world. They prided themselves on having drinkable water. So those things, again, are important. I guess a last question might be electricity. And then we hear about places all over the world, they have power outages and things, rolling blackouts. Do you consider that in your process?
Yeah, 100%. Like I mentioned, in Colombia specifically, they turn off the electricity, but they will tell you it's not just like, oh, it's a blackout and we're just sitting there. They tell you ahead of time, we're turning off the electricity on Monday, so be prepared, or we're turning off the water ahead of time, so you will always know. But there was a time, like I was in Peru or in the Dominican Republic, and the electricity did go out. For me, it's not a major issue because normally it comes back on within a few hours. It's not like the electricity was out for days and there was nothing we could do. And I also want y'all to know a fun fact before I went to live in Costa Rica. In Michigan, we had a power outage for like a week. And so I was thinking, I'm like, yo, y'all always want to talk about these countries abroad, but I'm up here in Michigan, in the United States, and got no power. Like, I'm actually excited to go to Costa Rica so I can have power. And so I was just like, this could be something anywhere. Like I talked about water as a global issue, electricity is probably up there as well. So for me, it's not a huge deal breaker, but if it is for someone and you know that places are having outages, maybe you don't necessarily have to be in that place, or there's also specific cities that might have more power outages than others. So you can get all this information ahead of time.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Is it about this topic?
No.
Okay, because this is something that comes up, and I'm glad. Thank you, Stephen, for your comment. This is something that I think, as a traveler, you're well-traveled. Registering with the State Department, yes. So we're going to say yes. It's called the STEP, the program that you alert the U.S. State Department that you'll be in a country so that you can get alerts if there's a natural disaster or something else that U.S. citizens need to understand may impact them. But can you talk? Are you able to talk about the reality of what the State Department will and will not do? I'm bringing this up because I'm also in several groups where people have gone missing, and they have said, well, the State Department should be able to help me. What's the reality of what the State Department can or cannot do? Are you able to speak to that? Because if not, I'm gonna make that another title if folks are interested in talking about what can the embassy do for you when you are traveling, or what you can when you move abroad.
Yeah, sad to hear about the person that has obviously gone missing. Again, another like global issue that there are specifically in the US, as we know, so many Black people are missing that have not been found, and globally as well. So definitely just want to recognize to the people that are missing that is very sad and unfortunate. And I hope that we can have better processes in the future to find people. So to your question about the embassy, I actually don't have a lot of information about it, but I can at least give you this. My understanding of the embassy is like, they're really good at providing information to you. So like what you mentioned, having alerts or letting you know if there is a natural disaster or things that are happening in the country, but necessarily like saving you or, like, I don't really think they be doing that. I think they're like, here's your alert. We let you know. Good luck with that. Because to my knowledge, I've never heard anyone that was like, the embassy got me out. Like, no. Never one time have I heard.
Because their mindset is you should have been home.
Right.
Nobody told you to go or where you were going. You should have been at your house. Yeah.
Number one on our website is don't leave the U.S.
Yeah, because it gives credence to the fear factor of things are bad if you're not where we have you.
Right.
And so I say again, because people say to me all the time, "Oh, you went to Colombia? Oh, you went to," and I was like, "Okay, first of all, ease up, dial down, breathe." Okay, I was like, I was born in Detroit. I lived in Chicago. I lived in Miami. I lived in Tampa. I was like, come on now. I mean, really, are you really trying to gauge the rest of the world? Birmingham is small compared to all the cities I just named, and they were in the top 10 in murders just
last year.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, I need you all to dial it down a little bit. Because again, safety, and I'm always going to bring this up, safety is something that you have to do mindfully. If you aren't going into a place because somebody says, such and such a place is safe. Okay, that is such a broad statement. That don't mean you go willy-nilly through, but I have been with people. This city that we live in is small. When we were here in college 30 plus years ago, it was even smaller. And people were like, "Oh, I went for a walk off." And I was like, "What is wrong with you? Where are you from that you just wandering off into these random places?" It's a mindset of, well, nobody's going to bother me. I'm nobody. There is a yes. Most of the time when you go places and people are being kidnapped and all of those big words, a lot of times it is not.
You and me. But
okay, but don't be ignorant.
So which is a great segue, because you have talked about safety. Now, this was primarily in the Columbia video, but I think safety in the scouting trip conversation should happen. So yes or no, is it safe to travel outside the US? And then how should I consider safety as a woman, Black woman, solo traveling, moving in spaces, daytime, nighttime? And then how do I just avoid like being a target.
Yeah. Oh, you came to the right place, even though I'm here on your channel. This I can do. Yes.
Yeah.
Come with it.
I have solo traveled 5 times. So, like, I literally went to a country by myself 5 times. I am a Black woman. I got this question. Yes, it is safe to travel outside of the US. Some places are even safer than the US. I could tell you
Oh,
that. Um, because specifically they don't have the way of thinking about Black people as the US, of like trying to subjugate us and mistreat us and remove us from the earth. Like, that is not the mission of some places. So you
mhm.
feel safe to walk around and not be harassed, or just all of the things that we have to go through. Obviously, being here, I don't have to tell any of you all what we have to experience here. And so what happens is, in countries where we are not the marginalized person,
Mhm.
because we have what we call passport privilege, or we're from the US, the first thing they kind of see is citizenship. And so that kind of allows us
Mhm.
to have a buffer and a protection that we do not have in the US, because here they just see us as Black, but abroad they see us as American first.
Correct.
So that's number one. Yes, it can definitely be safe to travel outside of the US in specific countries. I'm not saying the whole world. In
Right.
specific countries, places where they mistreating Black people, probably not. So that's number one. Number two, how to do this safely as a Black woman, safely as a Black person, is, again, do your research. Like, there's so many people out here that have been to so many countries. So many of us world travelers have done the work, so you don't have to. You can go to our channels, you can talk to us. Like, you all have done so much work, so we can already know if we're trying to go to Ecuador, what are the pros and cons? Where should we go? Things like that. Doing research is really important to focus in on that. Having the knowledge of what the space is. So I was talking to H earlier today about like how Brazil is a place that has the most, here's a Brazilian flag, has the most Black people in South America. And so that is going to like dictate what your experience is. Like, being in Brazil, I felt very safe and comfortable. There's Black people everywhere. It was just a normal experience for me, rather than living
Mhm.
in places where I feel like a target, right? Where there's like a bunch of white people and just you. And so like you always are hyper vigilant of yourself and in the situation that you're in. So definitely having the knowledge, knowing where you should stay ahead of time, knowing, like we said, the culture of the space, like what is actually happening in that space, so that you're already prepared. If they're already in a war, like remember when Egypt was having this situation, like if they're already having a war, why are we going there? Like, this is not the time to be involved in a war that got nothing to do with you, right? That is not something that you should just walk into. That is a situation
Don't,
that is
don't
unsafe.
don't make yourself an unnecessary target.
Don't make yourself an unnecessary target. If there's a
Mhm.
war, girl, you're not gonna help win that war. You're not gonna help fight in that war. So you just stay where you are and go somewhere where there isn't currently a war, like an issue, a major issue happening. Know the culture of the space, knowing what's happening to Black people in the space. This is gonna be real helpful. Not knowing what's gonna happen to people in the space. Know what's gonna happen to Black people in the space, because there are some places where they are really mistreating Black people all of the time. And I'm gonna specifically talk to you, Italy. Just specifically with the Italy, I've heard so many issues. I've also been there too, as well. So it's not just hearsay of like discrimination and not allowing Black people to eat at restaurants. And when I was there, it was like I was the only tourist, the only Black people I saw were people that were selling stuff on the street. Like, if you know that, then why are we going there? Like, that is going to make you feel more unsafe when we can go to places like you all have mentioned, where we see Black people everywhere and we initially feel safe and we feel like it's home and we feel connected to them. So knowing that, and then just always like paying attention to your surroundings. Every time I was walking on the street, I'm looking around, seeing who's around me, making sure I'm not like being followed or something, knowing that, I was out there by myself, making sure that as I've talked about on my channel, like having things inside my jacket, not like having them in my pockets for like pickpocketing situations. Having, when I'm about to get into a taxi, I'll have like the money in my hand to already give to the person instead of like looking through my purse trying to get it while I'm in the taxi. So just like
Mhm.
things like that would be helpful to make sure that you feel safe before you go somewhere or while you're in the country.
Girl, what I know is I feel like the more I have traveled, the more I can see the gaps when I'm looking at sources like YouTube, like on the internet. How has your travel and one distinction, one example that I'm going to give is when someone says, let's say, if you're talking about where go where you're treated best,
Mhm.
okay? People will say, this country treated me bad. But really, what's happened is they had an experience in a city. The whole country did not treat you bad.
Yeah.
The whole country, unless you're like in Iceland or Greenland, the whole country is not cold.
Yeah.
The whole country is not hot.
Yeah.
Because baby, we had
It's like 190.
we did two cities in Colombia. Medellin is not Cartagena. You hear me? Medellin is not, I don't care how hot it got in Medellin.
It was cold compared to
It was
Cartagena.
cold compared to the heat and humidity. And so I think that was an important distinction for us to be able to make when we're listening to information.
Mhm.
Now that, so I'm getting to the benefit of multiple travel experiences informing you.
Mhm.
So how has your multiple travel experience informed how you vet sources or how you interact with the information to feel like it really is beneficial and adding to your knowledge and not adding to your fear?
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. I love how you phrase this too. So, number one for me is like when I talk about like looking at people on YouTube, like we've done the work for you so you don't have to do it, is trying to find someone that is like similar to you. So, it's like a
Mhm.
person, like for example, Adelia from, she was also at Exodus Summit. She focused on solo travel. So, if you're like a person, I'm interested in solo travel, she will be a person that you want to talk to. If we're thinking about Mexico City, Rashida talks a lot about Mexico City. So let's talk to her. We know Stephanie talks a lot about house sitting. So if you're interested in house sitting, do that. So go to someone that reflects you, not just like we're a Black person, let's listen to them, but a person that also has the values that you have. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm a city girl from Detroit. We know this. You may not find a lot of value in my content if you like, I actually want to live in the suburbs. I actually want to be in a rural town because I'm going to focus a lot on the city because that is my preference. So
Mhm.
definitely looking for people that reflect you. Another thing is when you have information from people, take it with like a grain of salt because they're telling you from their perspective.
Yes.
For some people, they're like, I don't really like this place because they're speaking in Spanish all the time and, I haven't learned the language or whatever, something like that. But for me, as a Spanish speaker and study Spanish, I'm like, that's no problem for me. So from your perspective, I get it. Let me tell you, D, I get it because when I was in Curacao, they speak like a French Creole. They speak a
Yeah.
little Creole. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. They were like talking to me all the time. I was like, I have nothing for you. And we had nothing to give each other at
Mhm.
some points. And so I get it. It's like isolating to like not be able to have conversations with people. I get that. And so just making sure when you see the research from somebody, is that applicable for you? Like maybe that person language is a big deal for them And that's another thing on my list about country scouting is the language. Like, do you speak the language of the space? Are you willing to learn the language of the space?
Are you willing?
And see, that's
Yes.
you just perfect segue into the question I was going to ask earlier, because language is a big thing. And unfortunately, we as a country invest in secondary languages far less than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because we speak English, we carry a privilege because the rest of the world is attempting to learn English. And then we get mad when people come here. People get mad when they come here and they don't speak English, but then we get mad, we go to their space and they don't speak English. And we just spent 5 weeks. I had what I consider to be nominal Spanish immersion in high school and college. Nominal. Okay. It was necessary to graduate high school and necessary to graduate college. And those were so long ago that they are non-existent. I have tried to do some Spanish classy kind of things, apps and stuff. And I got to these 4 countries, and I was like, I feel like an imbecile. I mean, I was just like, I'm sign language and I might as well be in ASL, because I was like, hey, because that was how I got through. And as you've shared, I find in general, and again, I'm being general. In general, I find the Latin people to be very accommodating, especially in customer service areas. And so I think a lot of times we associate how well we get along with people because, again, as a touristy type visiting, we spend so much time in customer service areas that they are accommodated in ways that the average person on the street is like, I've walked up to a cart and the guy was like, I don't speak English. He wouldn't talk to me no more. I walked to a pharmacy and the guy wouldn't talk to me no more. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, I'm willing to try to, negotiate through it. And it was just like, I speak Spanish. And the end. But I found what you said, I know you said earlier, in one of your conversations, you found the people in Mexico to be less accommodating. I found them to be very accommodating.
But it depends on where you are.
But it also depends on where you are. I found them to be very accommodating in Medellin. Panama, not so much. It was kind of like,
yeah.
So this is a great segue to your Spanish speaking, your Spanish education. Girl, help us. How are we going to get this Spanish language?
Oh, God.
How are we going to get this Spanish language? Because, yes, I think understanding vocabulary, Rosetta Stone, Duolingo, there are a lot of things that our audience has suggested. Y'all, I have gotten to the point where I'm getting a private tutor and I'm signing up for an immersion program when I'm on the ground and somebody. So give a little bit.
I work with 4 or 5 different Hispanic people from different countries in my job. I make each one of them talk to me. I'm just like, because
So yeah, can you talk about what are good approaches? Our audience is primarily 35 and up. Yeah. So we're not in high school. We're not college, where we're the sponge years for language acquisition. Yeah. What are some approaches to, if you know that you're going to land in these Spanish first Central, South America, Latin American countries?
Yeah.
Give us the secret on acquiring the language skills.
I would love to. I just want y'all to know, I am loving this conversation with y'all. The questions are questioning and it is a great vibe. It's like,
if you like Maya and you like the conversation, hit the like button
and go to our channel and subscribe.
Hit that like button.
I love the fact that in your videos, you're saying, this is how we say it in English. This is how we say it in Spanish.
That was a big
deal.
I
was just like, oh, so you giving me a little bit of exposure. So like there's exposure, which I think is what these apps do, but nobody is vocabularying. The example I'm going to give is Herman would ask, what time do you close, baby?
I just done Spanish app classes. I knew Cerrado was closed. I was like, I'm trying to give you a word. And they were looking at me like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like what? Then they started laughing. It took like 5 minutes. And then they were like, oh, dude, he's all right. I was like,
It's
Come on,
okay.
give us the sequence on language acquisition, because
got
I think it could be a barrier for some beautiful places if
Yeah.
people are just nervous about or don't really have a desire to learn a language. I think there are opportunities
And I think it
to make
also,
it
I think it
accessible.
also limits where they can go in the areas they choose to move to. So
Yeah.
I'm now stuck where people speak more English
Gringolandia.
because I don't now know how to delve into more of this city that I've invested in because I don't speak the language or I'm having problems adapting to the language, regardless of what the language
Come on,
is.
give us the tips. Give us the tips.
Yeah, I got y'all. So first, I want to just go back to H's point of like places that are helpful with learning Spanish. Completely agree with you. Colombia, like super open. They will walk you through the language. Fantastic. In Mexico, like you had mentioned that you found that they were actually helpful. And I just want to say, I was in a place where I felt like they weren't, that was like being gentrified and taken over by white people. So maybe they were just like, girl, we're sick of Americans at this point, and not today. So I don't want to say like that's all of Mexico, but
Right.
maybe I was like, I get it.
Right.
I see them like
the lady in my visa line. She was like, "Do you speak Spanish?" I was like, "No." She frowned at me the next 15 minutes. I was like, "Lady, I get it. I feel you. I ain't mad. Be mad because I ain't mad." Yeah.
And I also wanted to reiterate that I agree with you about Panama. Like I was in Panama and I was like, girl, I was like, I speak Spanish, and they still were like, not you again. Like, so and I think D, that what happens is the history there. The history in Panama with the US horrific.
Oh man.
Correct.
Many white people taking over that space. Panama Canal, like y'all look up that information if you're interested in Panama. If you're gonna live in a place, you should know the history, the context. In the same way that people come over here and we like, how did you not know that Black Lives Matter? Is in the same way you need to know what's happening abroad. So definitely
say that.
Come on now.
Preach. Yes. Yes.
So, okay, for language acquisition, I have a few things for you. Number one, I do agree with you. Apps are really helpful. People have been doing Duolingo. There is Rosetta Stone, like just different things that you can do for language for sure. Another thing, I love what you said about getting a private tutor. There are so many tutors out here. Like you don't have to be in school to get a tutor. I had a tutor from Ecuador that I met on a tour when I was in Ecuador. And she was like, I also do, classes on the side. So if you want, and I signed up and I work with her now and I have private lessons with her individually. I will also say, if you have friends that speak the language, you should have conversations with your friends. Like y'all can go back and forth in that language. Like I have friends here that we speak in English, but sometimes I'm like, hey, can I just speak to you in Spanish just so like I can practice and maintain my Spanish? That'd be great. If you can find somebody you can do an exchange with, maybe they're trying to learn English, you're trying to learn French. You speak to, they speak to you for 30 minutes in French, you speak to them 30 minutes in English, and then it's like a barter, right? There's no money being exchanged, but it's the fact that you both can benefit because you both are learning language. And then I'm gonna just throw this out here, H&D. I don't know what I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna throw it out here. Is I would love to have a bundle where I am teaching people Spanish. I would be
come on now. Come through.
Years learning this
All
language.
the things for the people.
Maybe this year I could get it together and get some lessons and get y'all right.
Okay, so community question: how do we help you make it happen?
We can talk offline, but we're gonna make sure we're
the resource people now. If you're gonna put it out there, we're gonna go all in with you how to stir the pot. Because if I know you, so if I can come to somebody who's got 18 years, that limits the process right there.
And what I am recognizing is I have to have the reason to use it.
Yeah.
I have to have, it can't be, I can get away with speaking English. Because I've been following a lot of people and they're just like, if I can get away with speaking English, then it doesn't push me to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
Not just survival Spanish, to really be able to express myself and to comprehend. That's the what I have found is the comprehension part is where I have difficulty, and it's my neurodivergent brain.
Okay.
It's my hearing problem. I
Yeah.
can read it, I can decipher your sign language, but when it's being spoken, it just is. It's back to Charlie Brown for me. It's just wah wah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to move into the hearing practice because I can't hear everything. I hear little words here and there. I know
Yeah.
where we're going, but if there's something important you were trying to tell me,
News and slow Spanish. There are several podcasts
mhm.
where it's like short stories in Spanish. Y'all, I'm like, we gonna get free in this language area. How do you mm, how do you believe your experience has been enhanced by knowing the language?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, so one, thank you all so much for wanting to support my bundle and teach a Spanish classes. You could be one of the, you could be in the class, right?
Beta.
I think in terms of support, I just have to kind of figure out like the timing of when I want it and like how many sessions and stuff like that so that you all could get the best use out of it. So I think I'm good, but you know, always just like maybe checking in, girl, how's it
Yes.
going would be great. And then the other thing, that you mentioned H about like not being able to hear it. So what that is like your brain and your hearing has to be trained with the language. We don't notice, but every single day our brain is being trained to learn English. If we just stop speaking English, we would never probably forget it because it's our native language. But if we were not speaking it all of the time, we would start to lose pieces of the language. It's the fact that we talk about it all the time. It reinforces our learning of it. So what you have to do, H, is like hearing it as much as possible will train your brain
Mhm.
to hear what they're saying. Because
Yeah.
initially, like you said, it's gonna be Charlie Brown because it's like the brain is not used to what they're saying. It's like I can't
Mhm.
comprehend it. But over time, it starts to solidify in your brain, like, wait a minute, like the 30th time you've heard it, you're like, oh my God, this whole time you've been saying this. So I actually have a very small story about this in the Dominican Republic. Oh Lord. Um, I worked in an orphanage with students, and they used to always say cornflake to me. They were like, Maya, we want cornflake. Can you bring us cornflake? And I'm like, what is cornflake? I don't understand. And so,
Cornflakes.
thank you. You got it. You solved it before me. I was living here for 3 months and couldn't solve that. And so then I took one of my girls to the grocery store one day and she was like, cornflake. And it was cornflakes. And I was like, what? Like, brain could not for 3 months, could not with that. And then one day it just like made sense. And I was like, oh, all along they have been saying cornflake. So when you have more experience hearing the words over and over again, it's going to solidify in your brain. And so what I recommend for this is watching TV. First, you're going to watch TV. And if you have like Netflix, you can easily do Netflix. But all of these programs, Hulu, all of that, they have things in multiple languages now. First thing you're going to do is you're going to watch the show in English, okay? So you can put them English subtitles on it. You're going to watch that show. Make sure you find a show that you like. Like, don't watch
Mhm.
something that's boring. You're going to fall asleep midway. Like, something you could binge and you could watch it the whole time. Because if you lose attention, this is not going to help you. So
Right.
you're going to watch that in English. Then you're going to go back and watch it in the language that you're trying to learn. So then the second round, now we're watching it just in French with French subtitles. Then
Mhm.
you're going to go back again and you're going to watch it just in French with no subtitles. And this is like progression so that it's helping you. So initially you watch it in English because you're like, I know what they're talking about. I know what this show is about. And then as you continue to watch it in the other language, even though you don't have the language piece, it's bringing it together because now it's connecting what you already know the show is about from English to what
Yes.
you're saying in French to now being like, okay, so that word was this in English, or they're talking about this. I know what this conversation generally is about. So these words are related to that. This is really going to help you to train your ear so it will stop sounding like Charlie Brown for you specifically.
Look, okay, so we were watching a telenovela in Medellin, y'all. So it was a father and son on television. So sometimes telenovela they will say bursts of things, but they also it's the body language, it's the facial you really can dial in to that. And I was just like, I don't know what they're saying, but he just said this to the daddy. And then the daddy said that to him. And then the daddy walked away and the son did and he said something. And I was like, I know where it's going. I can tell those cues are important. Now I want to know what they're saying. So this approach might really be helpful to me.
Yeah,
but
because I want to be ready for when she went to the chiropractor. The youngest assistant in the room was getting her giggles at the fact that we had showed up with no Spanish. And I was like, she's obviously laughing at us. It's not like she's like smirking in the background. She is obviously laughing at us. And I want to be at the point where I go, or
the older lady in line that was.
So we told a story last week about a lady helping us in the store because we were in Medellin. She was helping us in the grocery store. And she was talking
grandmother.
To me. She's holding the whole conversation. All these old ladies are standing around me and they're holding the whole conversation in Spanish. I understood the context of the conversation from the mannerisms and body language, what exactly they were saying. Like she was saying that she was helping the lady behind me, but she wasn't going to help me because I was strong. So I understood the context. So I was laughing along with them and she's asking me questions and I was like, but I don't know what she was saying. Yeah, it just
the reasons are there because I want to give something back to the conversation.
In business, it's most frustrating for me when there's business to be conducted. Because the person who's doing business, the cashier, the whatever, they're in a time crunch and they're trying to move along. And now they're you got 12 people behind you. And now they're trying to find a way to communicate with your non-local language
Mm-hmm.
self. And for me, that is embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like I'm frustrated now and now I'm pressured. So even the little something I think I knew now, that's blown away. It's like remembering a whole script and getting up on stage and you see all the people and you go.
What he's asking is, how can we take shame out of our language practice in a new place?
Yeah, that's good. That's what I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, Mike.
This is why you marry smart people, ladies and gentlemen.
I was too ashamed to ask two ladies who had bundles of yarn in their arms. Where did they get? Somebody was having a sale, and I didn't have confidence in my language skills to interact with them without embarrassment. So come on, share the truth.
Yeah, and I get you. So in Colombia, you have to give like an ID number when you make purchases. And so, yeah, you all already know this. And that to me is the stressful part. Where, like you said, they're in a time crunch and they're like, ID number. I'm like, okay, girl, wait, 572, was this 522? Like that to me, every single time I'd be like, oh my God. I'm like, you lived here for a year. How do you not still know this number? Like
I've known Spanish numbers forever and I'm going, 5 is
because you have to give a ID code in Panama to the driver to match before you leave. And I was just like, here.
Yeah, same. I was like, here. Every time I'm like, girl, I got you. Girl, I got you. And she'd be like, you don't want to say it? I'm like, nope. I think you can do this quicker than I can say it. So when it comes to shame, like one of the biggest pieces is that you just have to recognize, okay, if you just think about being in the US, think about all of the people that we hear that are not first language English speakers all the time. There are people in high offices and positions that may have accents, they may not be from the country, that are out there putting themselves out there every single day with the accent and doing it bold and beautiful. And you already said, y'all both have already said how arrogant Americans can be, like, why don't you speak English? And they still out here like, and here we go. Right. So that's number one, just recognizing that it's not just you that would be out here trying to learn another language. People are doing this all the time. It's not a personal thing. It's all of us are working on that together. Number two is if you can have other people you can relate to, like how we're having this conversation right now about how stressful the ID numbers are. And it's like, okay, it's not just me having stress with the language. Even somebody that has been studying language for 18 years, the ID number is just a lie. It's a pressured situation. And it's just like, who had the time, in addition to like trying to calculate numbers and trying to do currency exchanges, to also know the ID number? Like, it just can be a lot. And then just like giving yourself grace. It's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's no big deal. That's how we learn. What I would tell you is some of the mistakes that I've made is how I was like, I would never make that mistake again. Like, once
Hey
I
now.
had that moment, I was like, okay. Or just specifically when somebody corrected me, I can remember like, oh my gosh, I remember when I was in Peru and they told me this. I will never not say it like that again. And then to circle back to your question, D, about like how language has enhanced my experience, I cannot tell you how much better my experience has been by knowing a language. I cannot tell you how much it has been. The first country I ever traveled to was Argentina. And I could not speak to my host family. It was exactly what y'all talked about with the Charlie Brown. I was like, I have no idea. What are you saying? And that's when I dedicated my life to learning Spanish language. I took classes, I worked really hard, and I came back and I could talk to my host family. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I am learning so much more about you than I ever knew before from just knowing this language. When I was in Costa Rica, learning about people's stories and vulnerabilities and challenges in their life, because people are more expressive in their native language. So if you're able to speak to them in their native language, it's like, wow, validation, being seen, being heard, and you can connect to the person in a different way. Another thing is not everything is translatable. There are some things that people are like, Maya, what does this mean in English? I'm like, girl, it don't mean nothing. But I'm gonna tell you what it kind of means in English. But sometimes in the specific language, the way of saying things is so unique that there is no direct translation. And you miss all of that if you don't know the language. You completely miss all of the nuance, the beauty of the language, the things that they're saying, because you don't necessarily have that. So I highly recommend, if you're going to be in a place, like y'all said, we expect people to know English. And I'm going to say we, but I don't think it's us on this channel. I think it's other people that have that expectation.
Come on now.
But it also should be an expectation. If you're going to a country, you should know some of the language, even if it's just basic phrases, if it's just hello, goodbye, and thank you, just stuff like that. And I can't tell y'all how much people have been thankful that I knew something. They're like, wow, you like knew a sentence? You're basically fluent. I'm like, girl, bye. But like, to be able to, that means a lot to people.
A lady said to me in line, because I was ordering some food, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm really trying. And the lady standing next to me, she said, at least you're trying.
Being able, because maybe because I got out more in Colombia. I'm not going to say that it wasn't as, you know what? Central and South America, baby, they're going to greet you. Okay. Okay. Just like we, in our community, we say, you speak when you enter a space, they're going to say good morning. So I knew to say hola or buenas dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Like, I had at least that to begin a connection.
Even when they felt dismissive.
I am hungry. I am hungry to know more. At the Bayesian Alpha 4, you and Temple both have been giving some great tips. Prophet Mother has been, I'm probably gonna have to hire her as our admin, because she's been summarizing along the way the strategies. But yes, context is everything. And you guys, Dr. Maya has given these approaches. She's someone who's integrating language into how she's sharing about moving abroad. These are the kind of folk that you probably want to have in your circle. I know we are well over our 1 hour. Oh, yes. Come on now. Come on, Bayesian Alpha 4. I have to be okay with speaking childlike. Leave that excellence and perfection in the country that you are leaving. because I am doing a new thing, and learning this language means I'm starting off at a rudimentary level, because as we've said before, Spanish throughout Spain is not, there are dialectal differences. The same goes for anywhere that you go. It also means being teachable.
Mhm.
Okay. So I might be confident. I might be a level 3 in my Spanish language skills, but I still have room to learn more. And I believe the way in which many of us are approaching the world is that I am here to learn.
I have one last thought or question. And it, what may be evident here in this sharing, in this conversation, is as liberating as scouting can be, it can also be a little overwhelming. In this process, where particularly using D and I as an example, because we have not said, "Ooh, I want to go to this place," we're the more we learn about the places we're going, the more it's like, okay, so where are we going? Because so many places become, because we're approaching them with more than just, I'm just going there. Like you said, you were going to Mexico. And then after you got to Mexico, and then we're like, okay, but this isn't what I turned out to be. And now then you had to spread out. We're starting out trying to come in. And that can be, I think, for some people, overwhelming. How do you not make the scouting process more confusing or overwhelming if you're in that I'm still trying to find a place kind of mindset?
Yeah, I would say definitely give yourself time to do more research and figure out a good place for you. Also, if you can afford this, have more time in the space. Because if you have more time, then you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I got to see all the neighborhoods right now. Oh, I have to go here. I have to do this. Like you can have more time to have like a peaceful experience and really take your time with that. And then also know like moving is a big deal. So you don't have to decide that immediately. You know, it took me about maybe a year to do country scouting to figure out like what made sense to me. So definitely giving yourself time on that to make it less overwhelming. If I could, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question.
Sure.
I am actually, let me just plug this. I'm going to do a video on neighborhoods in Medellin, Colombia. And so I wanted to know, you all mentioned Laureles and you mentioned Envigado, and I wanted just to know what your experience was. I was in both of those places and I actually stayed in Laureles and really enjoyed it. So just wanted to know your thoughts on those two.
We stayed in Laureles, and where we stayed, the part of the neighborhood we stayed in, I could live there. What I was surprised by, I talk a lot about the fact the desires to live city side. I'm a country, need to be away from the city because of how I sleep, how I wake, the noise, the movement, those things wake me up. And so I'm always concerned with when I recognize when we walk into a place and I can hear the movement outside. And across from us was the main grocery store and mall. It was busy in that area. At night, it was silent to the fact that there were no stray dogs walking on the street. It was quiet, which when I'm sleeping is all I ask for. What I also discovered was as I was rested, the morning noises did not disturb me. When I'm here at home and I'm tired, morning noises disrupt my sleep level and disrupt my day. I was waking up rested. So they were right behind us. They were banging and building at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was sleeping. I could hear it. I was aware of it, but I was sleeping. The area felt, and again, I'm using this word, very safe, very open. I was able to walk to several variety of places, stores, restaurants within let's just say a 15-minute walk. Most of them within less than 10-minute walk. Some of the places that we really frequented. That And even when we walked 25 minutes at some point, it didn't feel like we were walking forever. The space was really engaging, and I really liked the area we were in. What was the other place where we went where the chiropractor was? What was it called?
No, that was all Aurelius.
Okay, what was the place we walked to and we were like it was looking gentrified? Where the not where the where you met the young lady at the
Poblado.
Poblada.
Okay. Where's looking gentrified? Yeah, you're right.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
It-
you're right.
It felt gentrified in
The
a way.
prices, the interaction, everything.
It felt gentrified in a way where you go into a lower class neighborhood and begin to gentrify it. It felt like that. So there were places that even if the gentrification hadn't been there, I don't know if I'd have moved there. And then they were taking it over. It felt like that. I felt less comfortable there, and I quickly made us a way out of there. Which is again, which you would evaluate if you were in any city in the world, if you were here in the US, it's the same thing. She asked how we felt about the places that we visited, the neighborhoods that we visited. And,
wait, are we specific to Colombia? Or are we?
Yeah, specific to Medellin. She was
Okay.
saying she's been to those areas.
Well, let's see. So probably the things that mattered to me, because I've been attacked before in the U.S. at gunpoint. I have relevant trauma when I'm moving in spaces and I prioritize safety.
Mhm.
And so night movement, lighting, the feeling of safety is more, it's how people engage my personal space. It is also how the things that I loved about Laurellis is a lot of the things that I needed for my everyday living were in that space. So, places to buy food, clothing, co-working, bakeries, restaurants, various culture restaurants, various types, vegan, vegetarian, all of those things enhance my daily life, and that were in good proximity, and the cost of living in those spaces. Even if I were Airbnb, which is more expensive, it is not as expensive as other places because we've already been looking at what would a 1 month rental be in those spaces. And even in the nicer areas in our budget range, we can still meet our budget in a very nice, well-lit, what I would consider to be pretty, elevated caliber of living. Elevators in the apartment, condo, those kind of things bring a lot of value to me and the life I want to live. The question that someone posed to me, another expat, she said, compare the life that you're living in the US to the life that you want to live outside the US. Quality of life. Even if I'm paying less, I don't want to pay more than my move abroad budget, even though it costs less to do those things, to be oceanside, have an ocean view is less here than it is in the US. But if I'm spending $1,800, $20, $2,500, $3,600 a month, then my quality of life isn't there. The quality of life that I'm looking for, I can live in those spaces and feel peace and free. I'm looking, y'all, I'm on a heavy search for peace and freedom. That at 50, over 50, I never thought that would be my pursuit. And so things like massage and chiropractic care and massage therapists that come to your home, getting your feet done, getting your, manicure, pedicure, seeing myself and feeling unbothered, not ignored, but unbothered in a space. I'm belaboring this because my question to you is, with extensive travel, how are you caring? Moving abroad, I'm hoping people are also centering self-care. How did you center self-care? Because people are talking about, I didn't anticipate being homesick. I didn't anticipate getting sick or being in emotional distress like depression. How did you build in caring for those internal needs in your travel?
Yeah, appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge your trauma, and I hope that you're able to work through what happened to you. I'm very sorry that that happened to you. Self-care, you're so right, is so important. And just knowing that whatever trauma that we're dealing with in the US, we will take with us abroad. Going
Absolutely.
abroad does not solve that trauma. So I literally took all my depression to Colombia, and to all the Colombians, I'm so sorry. I was in a really bad place. I had just graduated with my PhD, and there was a lot of trauma I faced, academic hazing and stuff in my program. And I just took that straight with me to Colombia. So it was like really, really sad. So this actually is a great question for me because I actually went through this when I was there. So what I really had to do was like center self and focus on what I needed. So sometimes that was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay in the house all day today. You know what? Today, I'm just not going to answer my phone. I'll tell people that I'm okay, but I just need a day to myself. Today, I'm not hanging out with friends. Today, I'm going on a walk because that is like meditative for me and makes me feel good. Today, I'm reading a book, just really focusing on what I needed in the moment. And also when it comes to dealing with trauma and recognizing self-care, sometimes it's just like, every moment is not going to be good. Just recognizing that you are depressed, you are sad, you do have PTSD, you're naming it so you at least know moving forward what it is that you're dealing with. I also have a therapist. So having a therapist helps a lot. And one of the women, Dr. Joy, she was in Exodus Summit too, and she has therapy for Black girls. So definitely checking that out if you all are interested or trying to look for a therapist. And that's where I got my therapist that I still work with today. And so, yeah, definitely knowing you have to take care of yourself because somebody else won't do it for you. And sometimes, to be honest with you all, even though I've studied Spanish for like 18 years now, sometimes I was like, I just don't feel like speaking Spanish today. I just don't want to engage. Like, this is a lot on the brain. I'm constantly always thinking and translating in my head, and I just need a break. So sometimes it was like, I just need to stay to myself and in quiet. Now, what was helpful for moving abroad is that I wasn't around the things that had traumatized me. So that really allowed me to put myself back together because it's like, oh, there's another world out here. There are people being kind and respectful and nice. And so it reminds me that every person in the world is not bad. Not all things are bad. But definitely it was a difficult time, and making sure that you know what you need. So you had mentioned Dee about like getting a massage. I had a regular masseuse. I would see her every month. So kind in Colombia. Really great getting massages with her. I will also journal a lot. And so just like really doing what I needed to do to take care of myself because nobody else can do that. And so my final question to you both is, when are we moving to Laureles Medellin? Because it seems like that's what we want to do. We want to be in the same neighborhood. We want the same country. We country scouted. When are we going?
We're gonna pick you up on the way, kid.
Look,
Yeah.
well, I'm still me and Valencia, Spain have been bae from afar. I still need. We did Sevilla, which was
Okay.
my heart place, but it is difficult. I found it a little more difficult in Spain to find vegan and vegetarian food. I've there is what I'm okay. Maybe I can say it here. Music, music draws me in. Okay. Spain has a culture of music that you can hear in the street at unexpected times of the day, night. Same for Central and South America. I am drawn to Latin America, and I think I'm going to be in more places than we initially anticipated. I know that Colombia is going to be a place that I spend a significant amount of time. I'm going to say Ecuador is going to be a place that I spend a significant amount of time. I think Spain is going to be a place that I spend a significant amount of time. I think Mexico is going to be a place because I have found people and places and the way that I am fed physically, spiritually, socially, emotionally. These are healing spaces, not just being away from the thing that caused the trauma, but like the earth is emanating healing and restoration and nourishment, y'all. So, my last question, and then we're going to give you the opportunity to say anything we didn't give you a chance to say. Recognizing what you need is something you said earlier and throughout this conversation. You recognize things that you needed that were being introduced or opened to you in the various places that you visited throughout these 45 countries. Standing back, can you say that you can truly have a move abroad failure?
Probably I would say no. I would say in every situation where I've moved abroad, there was something significant that I learned. It was something that taught me about another place. So maybe it was just like a bump in the road. Maybe it wasn't a failure, but a bump in the road. I'll let you all know these are things I had talked about in Exodus was the Dominican Republic. Okay, y'all, I had one when I was super young. It was my first job out of college. I didn't know that they don't identify as Black. I was like, they are.
Yeah, that was a big eye opener.
No idea. I like that shocking. I was like, whoa, what? I'm like punked. Like, what? I didn't see it coming. Did not see it coming. And I specifically went there because I was like, Black people speaking Spanish. Perfect. I'm Black, you're Black. Spanish. Let's go.
Nope.
Same thing with Cubans, kid. Same thing with Cubans. There's no want you to know. Don't make that mistake.
You ain't got to worry about me. Not this.
On the same island as the people who are Haitian, but not the same, bro.
Not the same. Not the
Yeah.
same. Oh my God. Yeah, and Haitians fully identifying as Black. Yeah. And then also in Spain, what you mentioned, Dee, very helpful about the food. Like I was a vegetarian and they have like pork and everything. Like you just go to the shops and it's like a pig everywhere. I'm like, dang, you know, like I just didn't know what I didn't know. I was like, no. And so every single time I went somewhere, I learned something that helped me with the next thing. Like I told you all, I have been to Argentina and I didn't know that the reason that they don't have like a visible Black population is because in their history, they killed the Black people. They eliminated all Black people and then were encouraging Europeans to go to Argentina and like giving them half off discounted visas, XYZ, whatever rule they came up with at the time. And so like, you just don't know what you don't know. And so those things really helped me. So then I was like, let me do my research. I know Colombia has the second largest Black population after Brazil in South America. And that's how I ended up there, right? So I don't think there can truly be a fail, just something that you learn that will help you in the future when making the best decision for you.
I'm so,
You've been
this is an honor to have you. The comments have commented. You guys, so Dr. Maya, is there anything that you want to share that we haven't covered or that you want to reiterate? This is a space where we're saying, if you're moving abroad, the tip is check out a few places. It's not just what you're finding out about the places, it's also about what you're finding out about yourself. So is there anything else that you wanted to raise up as a tip or strategy when people are considering moving abroad that you have found the value of multiple places affording you?
Yeah, so one thing I totally forgot in this age of social media is that social media can be very helpful in connecting you with people that have had experience in the space. So if you type in Black expats into Facebook, you can find so many groups: Black expats in Panama, Black expats in Colombia, Black expats in Costa Rica, Black expats in Mexico, brothers and sisters of. And that is like really helpful to know for people that actually live in the space. So if you have direct questions, you're like, what is this neighborhood like? What are the costs of this? How can I find a chiropractor? Things like that. Those people can just let you know directly information. And for me, when I've gone to the countries to Country Scout, I met up with some of the people from those apps. Like they have meetings or they're hanging out or whatever. And so definitely making sure that you use social media to your advantage to get some of this information. And then I just think like, you don't have to go to the whole world. You don't have to like Country Scout in a million places. If you could get a minimum of just 3 countries, if you could just do 3, I think that out of those 3, you should be able to find one. But do your research ahead of time of what those 3 will be, and you should be good. Just try not to just do one, because you do the one and the one is like, girl, no. And then you're like, here we go. Now I got to pivot again. Just like one, shouldn't do one. Maximum you can do it however many you want, but at least do 3, a minimum of 2. And know this is my last piece. There is a place in the world for all of us. There is somewhere for every single person. Some people's bag is about to be the US. There's a few people that are like, I am here to stay, right? I'm having a great time. St. Louis, Missouri, let's get it, okay? I am loving my family, Detroit, and I'm having a great time, and there ain't nothing you can tell me because I'm right here, and this is my home. And then for some of us, it's going to be other places outside of the world. Maybe for you, it's Latin America. Maybe for somebody else, it's the Caribbean. Maybe for somebody else, it's Europe. But there is a place for all of us. And it is waiting for you if you want to find it, because all of us, Black people, have been through enough. All of us, as we lead up to MLK Day,
Preach.
all of us deserve peace on this earth.
Yes.
I say, as always, that we are global citizens. Yeah. We exist everywhere, and everywhere is open to us. Yes. You have been a superstar today, Doc, and I appreciate you being here with us. I said to her at the beginning of the conversation before we started, I was like, we're organic, so just go in, and you poured it out, and we truly appreciate it. If you are here today, if you are watching us from the future, take half a second, slide over to Fly Like Me PhD, and subscribe, and
hit the notification bell, because she be throwing videos up like dollars.
I watched 2 today. So subscribe. Her information is in the description.
I will put a link to Exodus Summit as well. The replays are available. The session was Avoiding Move Abroad Fails is the session Dr. Maya did. I did one on healthcare, but we talked about a lot of different aspects of the move abroad process, If you are looking for community, Exodus Summit is where I find 90% of the people that I'm talking to on this channel, the folks in the groups that I'm a part of, the groups that she just referenced, are also contacts that I bring on this channel, because I need you to understand, no one is asking you to be the be all end all in understanding the move abroad process. Some folks have gone before you. They are willing to share, ask the questions. And on the flip side, we need more of us in the social media space saying, moving abroad, traveling while Black is a thing that you can do safely, economically, lavishly, on a luxury budget or on a shoestring budget. Hey, a work away is a work away. You can fund a ticket out of the country. You ain't got to worry about housing or food because somebody is giving that to you. Or you can go to places where you can live in a penthouse. There are spaces and places where we are safe, valued, and accepted, and that we have the privilege of being able to do that. The first thing you have to do is get a passport.
We thank you all for spending time with us today.
Absolutely.
For sharing in the conversation. And we ask that you join us again at our next available video time.
Hello to the folks that are joining us from the replay.
Hit hashtag replay, hit the comments. We always respond. Doc, hold on with us just a second. Everybody else, y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
Bye for now.